team here at Log My Calls, and we're excited today to have Dan Levy with us. He's the editor at Sparksheet, and the title of his presentation today is Content Marketing Keys to Becoming a Brand Journalist. Now, I have a couple of announcements before we begin, and I think it's important to note, too, that today's webinar will be very different from the normal webinars we do, and that's because Dan is so creative. Usually we just have a presentation that someone does, but today it's going to be more of a conversation. So I encourage you to get involved with that. If you have questions, type them into the question tab, and I will capture those and then read them to Dan as we go through the presentation and then also at the end. I also want to just make a couple of announcements before we begin. The first, and we extend this offer on all of our webinars, is for a free trial of Log My Calls, a 30-day free trial. You can go to that link right there, type in the coupon code, and try our platform for 30 days. I also want to invite you to next week's webinar, 7 easy ways to get your site to read minds. This is a very cool presentation. I can vouch for it, and we're excited to have Keyword Catcher and Bart Olson presenting for us next week. So with that, I do want to introduce Dan, and we can get started. Dan is the editor of Sparksheet. Now, Sparksheet is an award-winning multi-platform magazine, blog, basically content compendium for all things marketing. He has some heavy hitters interviewed on there. He does podcasts. He does articles. He does interviews. Great site for marketers looking to expand their knowledge of marketing. It's also an Ad Age 150 blog. Dan lives in Montreal. He worked as a political reporter in Washington and as a writing coach in Boston. He also worked at Harvard. He holds a master's degree in journalism from Boston University and a BA from McGill University. So with that, I want to begin. Welcome, Dan, first of all. We're excited to have you.
Great to be here.
Thank you. Well, let's begin today with a couple of questions. And I did want to sort of begin with this discussion about content marketing and what it is, and brand journalism, that whole idea. First of all, kind of define for us, if you can, Dan,
Sure.
what content marketing, what brand journalism is.
Sure. So content marketing or brand journalism or branded content, it's all really just words for the same thing. And that's using stories to tell a brand story. So in that sense, I'd say that it's not that different from traditional journalism or traditional content in general, in that whether you're a magazine, whether you're a blog, whether you're a TV network, whether you're a brand, you have a set of ideas that define you, a set of values, a set of goals. You have an audience you're going after. In the case of a newspaper, that goal might be to inform the public in a way that's fair and balanced and transparent. If you're a magazine, then it depends, I guess, on what kind of magazine you are. National Geographic and Sports Illustrated and Cottage Life and The New Yorker all have very different values and goals and audiences. But essentially, in any case, you start with what we call here an editorial Bible. And that editorial Bible defines your scope, it defines your audience, your voice, what you sound like. So if you're HBO, it's kind of edgy. If you're a Gawker, it's a bit snarky. If you're the New Yorker, it's a bit erudite. But you use that Bible to kind of define what the magazine or what the content brand sounds like and is. And in the case of content marketing or branded journalism, you really it starts with the brand, and it starts with the brand's values, the brand's goals, and the brand's audience. And so and so in that case, you're using the brand as your guide rather than something that's set out by a publisher or a news organization. I could give you an example. Spawfax, the company, the content marketing agency that publishes Sparksheet, does mostly content on behalf of brands. Brands like Mercedes and Fairmont Hotels, and one of Spawfax's clients is Air Canada. Now, I don't work on this project, and I don't know that intimately, so I don't want to speak out of turn. But basically, one of the products, the content products that Spawfax publishes for Air Canada is En Route magazine. which is the airline's in-flight travel magazine. And what is Air Canada at its very basic sense? It's Canada's national airline that brings Canadians to the world and the world to Canadians. And so Air Canada is the place where Canada meets the world. That's a starting point for En Route magazine to create all sorts of really interesting content that has nothing to do with Air Canada specifically, nothing to do with airplanes. It's really what En Route is a magazine about travel, about places to go, things to do when you travel, and really bringing that idea of where Canada meets the world to life through stories that stand on their own and that are relevant to their audience.
And Dan, let me ask you this. It seems like there's been sort of this focus, if you will, on content marketing recently with Google's new algorithms, with this focus on inbound marketing, and there's some companies out there that have done a great job with that. I think Spofax is one of those. Tell us why content marketing is so critical, maybe from an SEO perspective, but also just from a, educating and building sort of reputation perspective. Give us sort of your sense as to why content has had such a renaissance, if you will, recently.
Sure. So Google has gotten really smart, and it's getting smarter and smarter at sniffing out folks who are trying to game their system. And so it used to be that you could create backlinks, and you could there's all these black hat tactics to get your ranking higher in Google. But more and more, as it's improved its algorithm as well as its human filters, it's gotten a lot smarter at that. And so now, really, the way to rank on Google or any search engine is through quality content. And search engines know the difference between content farmed content and quality content. And so, in that sense, content marketing, good, relevant, branded content is the way to get your content found and your brand found these days. I think I used to think that SEO was in a way some sort of crude form of writing in code. As somebody with a journalism background, as a writer, I always sort of turn my nose up at it a little bit. But more and more, I realized that a lot of good SEO techniques are really just good communication techniques, or really just good writing. Clear, concise headlines that tell you what you're going to read, tags and categories and subheadings that help you navigate the piece, short paragraphs. These are all things that are really about good communication. So, I don't think that SEO and good quality content have ever necessarily been mutually exclusive, but more and more, it's really quality that's going to get you noticed on the web.
And do you think that there is, not do you think, I mean, it seems there is a premium then on companies that are producing good content and that are producing content relevant not just to their audience, but relevant to good quality, as you said, original good quality content. Describe the importance of that, I mean, in terms of just, because I think some people write content just to write it. How critical is it that it's actually good? That may be a dumb question, Dan, but what do you think?
No, I mean, it's not dumb in the sense that I think you're right. I think a lot of people write content for the sake of writing content because content has become a buzzword these days. But the truth is, nobody's going to read your content or going to watch your content or listen to your content or consume it however they want to if it's not good. And by good, I mean I think the right word is probably relevant. And relevant to them. And so I think that that rather than just going ahead and launching a corporate blog or whatever, brands need to think about who their audience is, where their audience is, what platforms they're using, and create content that speaks to them and their needs on these various platforms.
Good. That's a great point. Now, there are people who are joining us today and who will listen to this in the future who are saying, and we hear this all the time from people, I just don't have anything to write about. I mean, I don't have any, what do I produce content about? Maybe I run a, a small or medium-sized business, or maybe I am in the B2B space. No one wants to read about what I write about, or no one's going to want to listen to this. What do you say to those companies who say, look, I get it, content's important, I just don't know what to write about or produce content about?
Sure. So what's the oldest cliche in writing? Write what you know, right? I mean, that's what they teach you in grade school.
Right.
Write what you know. Write about yourself. Write about whatever your expertise is. And that's exactly what content marketing is about. Whether you work for a brand or you own your own brand, or you're just writing for yourself and you have your own personal brand, then that's what you stand for. That shouldn't be hard to write about. I think that, speaking as an editor, it always helps to have people that could help you tell that story and articulate that story. But fundamentally, all you need to do is look at what you stand for and use your brand story as a starting point. So, and I think of we have about 80 something contributors now on Sparksheet. Very few of them are professional writers. They're subject experts. They're thought leaders. They're not picking topics out of thin air and writing about them. They're not, for the most part, going out and doing reporting, although we do some of that internally at Sparksheet. They're writing about what they know about what they do every day as marketers, as people in the media business, as designers, as data analysts. They're writing what they know. So whether it's mobile marketing or branded video or luxury travel or emerging markets, all these subject areas that we cover, we looked at people who know what they're talking about, and we help them really craft their story and find the best ways of telling their story. And I think that's the case for any brand or anyone that wants to start creating content. Start with what you stand for, what your goals are, what your audience is, and use that as a starting point for your content.
Okay. Now you have on your on the mini presentation here, there are some slides, and I want to have you give us some examples maybe of companies that do a really good job with content marketing or with branded journalism. Can you give us some ideas of places to look as far as examples as to who to look to for really good content marketing and brand journalism?
Sure. So the first thing to keep in mind is that content marketing isn't new. It's something that's been going on for at least 100 years, and you can make the argument that it's going on forever. You could go back to cave drawings or whatever, which a lot of people do in presentations. But for example, in 1895, John Deere created a magazine called The Furrow, and fundamentally they sent it out to people who were settling areas in the states that were just becoming farmland, and at the strategic level, it helped them keep track of their customers and their far-flung dealer network. But in terms of content, it was content about the technological changes that were happening at the turn of the century in farming and agriculture. So content marketing goes back at least to 1895 with John Deere. There a lot of people probably don't think of, for example, the Michelin Guide as a form of content marketing. That was launched only a few years after John Deere's The Furrow, and really it was created to help encourage people to get in their cars and drive around France. Right? You're a tire company. What do you do to encourage people to use your tires? Well, you give them incentive to go and to explore the countryside. And so the Michelin Guide and the restaurant reviews and the ranking system, that all started in France with this piece of content marketing. And now it's gone on and really taken on a life of its own. And some might even question whether people even associate the brand with the content anymore, and whether, in that sense, it's content sort of gone away from the marketing, if that makes sense. But in any case, that's content marketing, and that's been around for a long time. Now, content, like I said, has become a buzzword, and web people, like to think that we invented everything, but as we did, and as you could see through those print examples. But you're definitely seeing some really, really interesting examples of content marketing on the web these days, going beyond print and text, for example, into web video. So one piece of content marketing that I really like is a web series called Web Therapy with Lisa Kudrow. Basically, it's just short videos with Lisa Kudrow plays a therapist, and she interviews celebrities like Rosie O'Donnell and Conan O'Brien. And it's, you wouldn't even necessarily know that it's branded content, except if you look in the top right corner of their website, there's a little L. That L stands for L Studios. And what does the L stand for? Lexus. It's actually Lexus, the car brand that puts out this series. And so I think that's a really interesting example of branded content that really just, I think, exists to make you see the brand a little bit differently than you might have otherwise. You might just watch the series and then, oh, look, Lexus produces that. And so it just develops a bit more of a human connection to the brand. And if it's a funny series, so if it makes you laugh, then it kind of gives you a good feeling about the brand. Recently, I came across a site for Monsters University, which is the Pixar's Monsters, Inc. prequel that either just came out or is about to come out. And they put together this really fun website, which is basically a fake university website full of articles about the Monsters football team and faculty pages. So there's the School of Scaring, where you could take courses in hiding in closets 101 and advanced screaming. And it's just really fun and exists to create engagement with the brands and the movie beyond when you're in theaters. And I say brand in this case because, of course, Pixar and Monsters, Inc. has become a huge franchise, and there's toys and all sorts of opportunities for brand extensions. And so this site just gives you another way into that story world, and it makes sense that Hollywood movies are getting really, really good at branded content because they're fundamentally all about stories. Their incredibly rich story worlds exist already, and so we saw this also with the Hunger Games. They created Facebook and Twitter accounts for each of the districts described in the books and the movie. And so branded content isn't just about magazines. It's also branded web series. It's Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts that are tied to some sort of story world that's tied to a brand. Another piece of another example of content marketing that I really like is an app. It's a mobile app by Charmin, the toilet paper company, and it's called Sit or Squat. And I think this is a great example of creating something that customers just want and need. And so in this case, it's just it's an app that helps you find the nearest public bathroom and rates them in terms of cleanliness and accessibility and all that. And so whether or not you use Charmin or you kind of think about the brand, it's an app that pretty much anyone that's ever out in the world and is looking for the nearest public toilet could use. And again, I think a great example of content marketing, also a great example of an app that's content, but isn't just content in the sense of allowing you to consume content on your mobile device that you would consume in other places. It's really a utility. I think that's what mobile apps, the best mobile apps are. They're things they're tools that you could use to help you through life. And if that tool is provided by a brand, then that's a great opportunity for the brand.
So I see here clearly that you should not go to the Waffle House in Concord, North Carolina. I think that would be a bad option. And basically what I'm hearing you say, Dan, is that the key seems to be providing useful information. And it can be presented in a humorous way, in a serious way, whatever will engage your audience, but the key seems to be providing useful information that the audience can use and that will encourage them to engage with that content. Would you agree with that?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. So give us because I think there's a lot of people right now, especially after the Google updates with the new algorithms, that are saying, well, how do I even get started? I mean, like, how do I start my content marketing? How do I start my brand journalism? Do you have any recommendations for really how to just begin the process? I mean, is it as simple as just starting a blog and starting to write a few times a week, or what would you suggest in terms of actually getting started down the road to useful content marketing?
Sure. I would say that no, the way isn't to start a blog and start writing, because to be honest, the last thing the web needs right now is another blog. And if Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. If you start a blog, no, they will not read it. So I would start with all content. You need to start with strategy. I would start by thinking about what your goal is as a company, what your why you want to create content, not just because it's a buzzword, but because you have some sort of objective that content can help you reach, whether that's changing the perception of your brand in the eyes of people, whether it's customer loyalty and retention and just building relationships with existing customers, whether it's to launch a specific product. So definitely you need to start with strategy. You need to start with the why before you get into the how. In terms of the how, again, what sort of platforms do you want to use? That starts with where are your customers? Are they people that are on the go? And so you want to look at mobile as a platform. Are you a hotel, and you want to speak to customers when they're in their rooms, and so a print magazine in that case might make sense. Are they, social media savvy, and you want to speak to them through Twitter and speak to them through a blog? And so I think you need to think of the why, and you need to think of the how, and then I guess the who is maybe the next W, and in that case, I guess. It's sort of self-serving, but I think you want to hire a brand journalist, hire somebody who knows how to take your story and create interesting sub-stories out of that. And so, for example, journalism schools. I'm a journalism school graduate. I think you are as well, McKay. And believe it or not, journalism schools are still churning out hundreds, maybe thousands of graduates every year, even though, as we all know, journalism jobs are getting fewer and fewer. And so I think that there's an opportunity here, and Joe Pulizzi, who founded the Content Marketing Institute, talks about this a lot. I think there's an opportunity for brands to embrace and hire young journalists or experienced journalists who are looking for different opportunities in their career, and to get them to help them tell their story. These people are born storytellers, trained in the art of finding and curating and telling great stories, and they'll work with you and your brand to identify and define your brand story and identity, and again, put together an editorial Bible that will help them guide their content marketing efforts on your behalf. So, content marketing to me is really a partnership between a brand and storytellers.
That's good. That's good advice. That's interesting about the hiring a brand journalist. I think that, as you say, I think there are a lot of people out there who really just, they don't know where to get started. They know they should do this, but they don't know what to do. So I appreciate that advice. That's good. Give us some, before we jump into a couple of these last slides, Dan, give us some sort of, and it really, I guess, probably depends on the industry too, but give us some maybe keys or useful tips to just creating sort of a content strategy. Is it as you said, it starts with creating sort of the what do you want to accomplish, and then from a tactical perspective, is it useful to have a good mix of videos and written content? Is it most critical to produce content regularly? What are the most critical elements of actually being effective at content marketing?
So I think the keys to effective content marketing are, in some ways, the keys to effective content in general. And and there are whole books on this written by people who've been doing this a lot longer than I have. But on the most basic level, I think it starts. We talked about it starts with the story, so there's the story, and then there's the medium or the platform. So on the web, you're going to want to think about things like short paragraphs and lots of subheads and bullet points, what web people like to call snackable content. And so you want to keep that in mind. Video, as you mentioned, is something that is probably, if anything, underused. There's so much user-generated video on YouTube. People are spending so much time watching YouTube, but I'd say in terms of content creators and content marketers, they probably aren't using video enough. So definitely a mix of video, of snackable bits that people could share easily on social networks. So stuff like pull quotes and just pithy content that's easy to share and to and to sum up. In print, there's obviously more room for longer narrative content that people could really get lost in. But again, at the heart of it, no matter the medium, it's about having a good story, and that's something that every person and every brand has. Politicians are really good at this, right? Right now, I know that there's an election going on, and both candidates, both Barack Obama and Mitt Romney, are really good at putting together a story or a narrative for the public, right? Barack Obama is the son of a black father and a white single mother who was supposed to embody sort of the change in America. Mitt Romney, successful businessman and turnaround artist who's going to turn around America in this financial crisis. Steve Jobs, of course, was a master at this. He famously told this story of when he was in college, and I think he had already dropped out at this point, but he began auditing classes. And he started auditing a calligraphy class, and that really taught him the value of good design and of aesthetics, which of course is something that he brought into Apple. So I think it's finding your story and then finding the right medium to tell it with. And one thing that I think is interesting about brands and kind of a benefit in a way is that brands are always, their stories and their goals and their values are always evolving. So there's a real opportunity as a content marketer for that content to evolve with it. So for example, when I was first tasked with creating Sparksheet, which is a media brand in its own right, but it also exists as content marketing for Spalfax, the agency that publishes us. Basically a mandate was pretty simple. It was just create a media brand that explores the Spalfax universe. And the Spalfax universe, at that time, the company had a lot of clients in the airline industry and the travel industry, and had really saw its customer as what we call the transumer, or the consumer in transit, the consumer on the go. And so when Sparksheet was first launched, a lot of our stories really had to do with travel, with airlines, with hospitality. But as the brands evolved, and as I'd say the media and marketing world has evolved, that scope has evolved with it. And so now when we look at the idea of travel or mobility, we're not just looking at airlines and hotels. We're also looking at mobile technology and the way people are consuming content wherever they are. If you're an airline, you're still interested in providing content for people on the airplane, but you're also interested in the way they connect with you at the airport through digital screens, and when they're booking their ticket online, and when they're checking in on their mobile app, and when they're interacting with you on Twitter and Facebook. And so for us, the idea or the scope of what we're talking about of mobility has really gone from just travel to wherever to how brands are using different platforms to get content to people wherever they may be in the world, in terms of platform and in terms of geography. So we also talk a lot about emerging markets on Sparksheet. So the where has become really broad in that sense. And yeah.
Well, and that's a great point, because you want to make your content consumable however people want to access it and however they're comfortable seeing it. And one of the things that I think that we've seen, Dan, and maybe you can speak to this too after I make this comment, you can piggyback off this for a moment, is we've seen clients of ours who are savvy in marketing. So clients that are big and small, but you don't have to be a major brand to do content marketing effectively. We've got clients who are dentists who have blogs about how to clean your teeth and who produce videos on effective ways to take care of your family's dental health. We've got small businesses that are in the automotive industry that produce great content about taking care of your car and driving safely, things like that. So, would you agree that it's not like, as you said a moment ago, any business, regardless of the size and regardless of the scope, has a story to tell and can make their content available to whomever wants to read it in whatever way they want to see that or view it or read it or what have you? Would you agree with that, Dan?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, one of the best examples of content marketing that I saw a few years ago was, I forget the name right now, but there's an article about it on Sparksheet. It's basically a company that makes scuba diving gear and snorkeling gear. And the last sort of company that you think would be a trendsetter in content marketing, but they really distinguish themselves by creating this great interactive timeline of the history of underwater exploration and of scuba diving. And so they took their own industry and their own story, and instead of just going out there and putting out deals about scuba diving gear or talking about their offers and their brand, they really became thought leaders in this industry in general and put together a definitive source of information and content on scuba diving and underwater exploration in general. And yeah, the healthcare industry is somewhere that we're seeing content marketing becoming more and more popular. There's the Content Marketing Institute, which is a content marketing world conference. They just had their first event that was exclusively about the healthcare industry, and so yeah, there's lots of opportunities, whether you're a dentist or you're a hospital or a nonprofit or or just an expert on whatever it is really to put out content. You do not have to be a big multinational brand, and in fact, it's probably easier if you're not, because there's so many layers of red tape when you're dealing with a big brand. Big brands tend to be siloed, and so it's hard to get the web department and the PR department and the communications department talking. And so yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Now, the other question that we're seeing a lot of is, okay, I have content, I have what I feel is useful content, and you guys have done a great job on this with Sparksheet. How do you promote? Because you said earlier, you made a good point, like the Field of Dreams, it's not as simple as if you build it, they will come. How do you then promote that content to an audience that, whatever your strategy is, how do you promote that? What are the best means to get that content out there?
Yeah, so, we get basically this question a lot, how do you get more traffic from your content, which I take it is essentially what you're asking, right?
Right.
So I think that what I usually say is, what kind of traffic do you want? Are you trying to get hundreds of millions of eyeballs to sell Viagra advertising? And basically trying to use economies of scale and trying to get lots of clicks, making not that much money per click, but monetizing that way. Are you trying to be the McDonald's of content? Or are you trying to be the El Bulli? Are you so it's essentially a matter of, again, of quantity versus quality. And I think that the age of one-size-fits-all, lowest common denominator content is pretty much over. And look what's happened to newspapers like USA Today, magazines like Newsweek, which just announced that it's it's no longer going to be printing. And so I think that the key is to identify your audience and your niche, and then build a platform that's catered to them. So so it might not be a platform that's meant to get thousands, hundreds of thousands of users a day. It might be to build a community, a very specific niche community, and then cultivate that community, and then you could sell things to that community. Rather than just advertising, you could build a platform and do stuff like webinars and sell books, conferences. And so, I think there's no such thing anymore as traffic for the sake of traffic. It's really about building a community and knowing what you want to do with that community. One of a success story is a site called Ravelry, which is a social network for knitters and crocheters, right? So like really niche stuff. And there are still niche print magazines, woodworking magazines and weaving magazines and tea industry magazines that are doing this really well. So it's building a platform and then using that platform just to serve a defined community with content. And so to get to your original question is how do you get that content out there? Well, you need to find that community. You need to go where that community is. If that community is on Ravelry, then that's where you've got to go. And when it comes down to it, it's a very tight-knit community. And if you could earn their trust, then there you go, and serve them with content. Then you know exactly where they are. And
Dan,
yeah.
And Dan, it sounds like what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like what you're saying is you need to put the same care into marketing your content, and not, marketing is probably the wrong word, but the same focus you would as for your whole business plan. Who am I targeting? Who am I going after? As you would for your content strategy in terms of who do I want this to appeal to? How do I reach them? Focusing on engaging with them. So perhaps that's a specific industry, or perhaps that's a specific group of people within an industry. Is that what you're saying? Am I stating that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So once you've identified that audience, that industry, the people within the industry, then it's a matter of finding out where they congregate. Whether it's at certain events or whether it's on on LinkedIn, certain LinkedIn groups. Or whether whether it's in they're still reading certain print magazines. It's about finding who they are, where they are, and then bringing the content to them. That's how I think you promote your content, or you get your content out there. You go where your users are, and you serve them with the content, and then they'll keep coming back to you.
Great. And I want to have you, Dan, go through a couple of these. I see a couple of additional case studies and things here. I want to have you go through these real quick, and then we can conclude with some additional questions.
Sure. Yeah. So one thing that I've talked a little bit about platforms, and we talked about social media and print and blogs and video. One thing that we've found that an increasingly powerful platform kind of counterintuitively in an age where we could connect with people so easily through technology is face-to-face events. I think that as people travel, or people connect more and more online through social networks, the thirst to actually engage in real-world relationships only gets stronger. And so at Sparksheet, just as a media brand, we've covered a lot of industry events over the past few years, whether it's big events like South by Southwest or smaller, more niche events. And we realized that just in the process of covering these conferences, sometimes we'll do like an interview with some of the speakers beforehand, and we'll be there, and we'll be taking video and live tweeting, and afterwards we'll write a roundup. Oftentimes we end up doing a better job promoting the event or marketing the event than the conference themselves. And so last, as a kind of example of, of a brand extension, we last summer launched something that we're calling Sparksheet Events, which is basically a custom content service around conferences and trade shows. And so it started with a show called Apex. It was the Airline Passenger Experience Conference in Seattle last year. And basically, we created a microsite called Sparksheet at Apex, and we did interviews with people in the airline industry beforehand. We got some people to write think pieces and articles around the the topics that were going to come up at the event. And we went out to Seattle and we had a booth, and we set up a little studio, and we started to take some video. We had a Twitter visualization running where we took everybody's tweets and we put them in sort of these clouds with airplanes and everything. And then afterwards, we we posted that video online, and we sent out a newsletter with that content. And so yeah, again, it's looking at basically events as another platform, and another platform for content marketing around that event. We also partnered with a event in Toronto this past January. It was called DX3. It was a trade show and about digital marketing and digital advertising. In this case, it was actually their first annual event. So it was an opportunity for them to really stake out their claim in the market, to build relationships with their sponsors and their speakers, and so we did, again, like interviews and think pieces, not about the event itself, because we discussed content marketing is never a direct sell, but just about the theme of the event, which in this case was digital marketing, digital retail, and digital advertising, particularly in Canada. And so we launched a custom magazine website for the events, around the event. Again, we were at the event, and we were had a studio set up, and then afterwards we sent out the content just to keep to make sure that the content that the event stayed top of mind for its attendees, and to really there's a lot of noise at events, and there's a lot of great conversations that happens. There's a lot of great talks. But what ends up happening usually is that by the time people go home and the convention doors close, all those great conversations, relationships, and that great content kind of gets lost in the ether. So, so the idea here was to extend the lifespan of that content and of that event 365 days a year.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that regardless, and this goes back to what we were saying a moment ago, any organization could, in essence, for maybe specific events in their industry or specific, maybe seasonality or seasons within that industry. If maybe in your industry, if the holiday season is really good or the start of the year is really good, you can actually create content around that and sort of become the experts in that space or around that event or through that season. And it sounds like you're saying take an event, put a stake in the ground around that, and provide content and frame yourself as the expert and the official, content provider for that thing, whatever it is.
Absolutely, and I think we take a lot of inspiration from the music industry here, actually, because the music industry went through what the publishing industry and the journalism industry is going through now 10 years ago, where suddenly they found themselves, with the web and with streaming and with MP3s and downloading, they found that they really were no longer, record companies and individual artists weren't able to sustain themselves through selling albums anymore. And what's happened over the last 10 years is that the focal point of the music industry is no longer record sales, but it's live events, it's concerts. It used to be that if you were the Beatles, you put out an album, let's say Hard Day's Night, and then you went on Ed Sullivan to promote that, and you put out, in their case, they put out a movie, Hard Day's Night, and but all these things were essentially to promote the album. Now, I'd argue that the content that the music industry puts out, the album or the music video, or the Kanye West Twitter channel, this is all exists to promote Kanye West's show, that when Kanye comes to your town, you're going to go see him because he's engaged with you through all these other media throughout the year. So in the same sense, it's the same sort of thing with say business conferences, right? They already have the event platform, and in a way that they're doing it the other way around, right? Because they already have the live concert. That's what people are going to them to, and that's how they're monetizing. But they need the other forms of content, the ecosystem around it. They need the Twitter, the community. They need the YouTube videos. They need the really good in-depth magazine content or interviews to keep their brand top of mind throughout the year, so that when they come to town, people are gonna go to them because they've built that relationship through content. If that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That's great. Give us, and I want to conclude here in a moment, but give us a couple of the biggest misconceptions about content marketing or brand journalism that businesses have. What are the things that they're doing wrong? What are their misconceptions?
Well, I mean, on a business level, I think a lot of businesses or business people confuse content and communications. Content is a form of communications, but it's not PR. It's not press releases. We've had people come to us and say, "Oh yeah, we know we need content. We need to build relationships with the press, and we need to let people know what's coming up." And when we have a new product, and we say, "Well, that's great, that's important, but that's PR. That's not content." I think in some ways this industry switch from it used to be called custom publishing or custom content. Now it's called content marketing, and in a sense, and I can see why for agencies that's sort of advantageous to emphasize the marketing, because frankly people usually are willing to pay more for something called marketing than something called content that they associate with publishing. But in a sense, I think something's lost there, because I think in the content marketing equation, it's really the content that sets it apart, and which is why I think you need really good brand journalists and people who understand content and not just marketing to put it out there.
Very good. Any final thoughts? We've had some good questions, and I think that the content's been very useful today, speaking of content. So do you have any last thoughts for us before we conclude today, Dan?
Any last thoughts? Well, you asked, what are some conceptions among marketing people or brands about branded journalism, which we just talked about. I think there's also probably some misconceptions in the journalism world about branded journalism. And this is something I think about a lot as somebody who went to journalism school and still considers himself very much a journalist. And that's that branded journalism really just isn't that different from traditional journalism. Again, if you're a traditional journalist or a magazine or a TV network, you're looking towards some set of values or some guiding principles to guide that content. If you're a branded journalist, then you're just looking towards the brand. But once you've kind of established that scope, then you're really free to, or you should be free to create content and tell stories in a way that's not dictated purely by considerations of making a hard sell. And I think that Spotfax, when they decided to launch Sparksheet, and they approached somebody like me to head it up, really understood that right away, and they understood that nobody was going to read this thing if it was only talking about them and talking about Spotfax. The only way that people were going to read it is if the content stood on its own. And branded journalism, it stems from those brand values, but on the other hand, I think it could also help lead the way in many ways, and it could help a company establish credibility, establish thought leadership in an area where right now they may not be as proficient in, but that down the line may be an industry that they're going to end up exploring or that they might want to explore. And so there's a bit of a push and pull with content, and that's something that we've seen here at Sparksheet, where on the one hand we are content marketing for SpotFacts, but we're also in a sense an incubator, a place where ideas about the ongoing changes in the media and marketing world get to be explored, and we get to play with new design techniques and new forms of content that a company might not be able to on its own or for clients. And so I think that branded journalism, content marketing serves not only to reflect the brand, but also to push it forward in many ways. I think that's a real opportunity and something that's overlooked by many brands.
That's great information. Well, Dan, we appreciate it. I would just add, to sort of piggyback on what Dan said, it seems to me that the critical element that a lot of companies miss is, as you said, Dan, I think that they try to sell themselves too much in the content, and every blog post is 5 reasons why our product's awesome, as opposed to actually providing useful information. And I think you guys do that very well with Sparksheet in terms of providing useful information, and eventually if you do that enough, people will find you. The other thing I would say is it seems like in the past there was this, as you said, sort of mind share around content marketing that eventually they'll figure out that that SpotFacts is behind Sparksheet or what have you. But now, because of these Google changes, it is a matter of SEO. I mean, it has, I think, made it that much more important even than it was before. Would you agree with that, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, and it's not just it's not just Google. Like, for example, we launched a podcast this summer. We're actually coming out with our 2nd episode next week, which is all about China and the luxury industry in China. But that's a space. The podcasting community, the iTunes community, is a totally different market than the people who are reading blogs and finding you on Google, right? Google is no longer just, or the web itself is no longer just the place where content lives, right? There's apps, there's the Apple ecosystem, there's the iTunes ecosystem, there's the Amazon ecosystem, and so I think as we have more and more places where people are consuming content, it's more and more important for brands to put out relevant content in all these different places.
Good information, Dan. Well, we appreciate your time today. We really do. And this will be made available in the Sparksheet newsletter coming up, the recording of this. And so, hopefully we can provide a lot of this good information to a lot more people. And we appreciate those who've attended today. And continue, please, Dan, to do your good work on Sparksheet. We write on there. I know we write about mobile marketing, and we have nothing but good experience so far with Dan and what he's trying to do at Sparksheet. So, Dan, thank you again for your time today. I do want to conclude with a couple of final announcements. We do want to extend that special offer to you for a free trial of our marketing analytics platform, Log My Calls. And then I also want to recommend coming to our webinar next week, which is called 7 Easy Ways to Get Your Site to Read Minds. And this is a very interesting presentation, so I want to invite you all to attend that. Just sign up at logmycalls.com/webinar. With that, we'll conclude today with another thanks to Dan. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We appreciate it. Join us each and every Thursday here for the Log My Calls Marketing Webinar Series. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, McKay.